So the next step that we need to go over is the y-intercept. And last week we concentrated a lot on finding the x-intercept and the y-intercept. But when we're dealing with slope-intercept form, we're really only going to focus on the y-intercept. And we actually call that the b value. A couple things that you want to keep in mind is that when we're finding the y-intercept, it's really just where any line crosses the y-axis. That's why it's called the y-intercept. It's intercepting the y-axis. And at that point, the x is always set to 0 because the y-axis is when x is equal to 0. So we just move from the origin straight up or straight down. And that tells us where we're going to find the intersecting point for that specific line. Now, every line could have a different y-intercept. So it's one of those things that we have to still be able to calculate and still be able to go over. And we want to be able to solve this using a couple of different methods. All right. We're still going to be able to graph it, where we can look at a graph and just see the picture and say, oh, I know where it crosses. Or we have to be able to do this through an equation. So in order to find the y-intercept of this equation, we want to set the x equal to 0 and solve it for y. Now, the nice thing is it's already in the y equals format. So when we set this equal to 0, it's just going to say y equals 4 times 0 plus 12. Well, we know that 4 times 0 is just going to be 0. So as a result, 0 plus 12 is 12. We know that y is going to equal 12. Now, that tells us, since it's at 12 and x is at 0, that the point must have been 0, 12. 0 standing in for the x value, 12 standing in for the y value. So the ordered pair of 0, 12 is the y-intercept. Now I'm going to pause here for a second and explain. A lot of my students throughout our last activity, they would only put in the 12 as the answer. And when we're talking about an intercept, we're talking about the point at which the line crosses that axis. So you need to make sure that when you're writing your solution or your answer to this specific question, you're putting it down as an ordered pair. 0, 12 within parentheses is an ordered pair for the actual intercept. Okay. Now, if we're inserting this into an equation, it's going to be a little bit different. But for right now, if we're just asking for the intercept or the intersecting point, let's make sure that we have that as an ordered pair. Okay. Now, did you notice how the 12 had a plus in the equation, had a plus 12 in the equation and with our point? If you didn't see that, the equation up here, y equals 4x plus 12, and the intersecting point was at 12. Definitely not a coincidence. This is something that is specifically planned out. Okay, so again, find the y-intercept of y equals negative 4x minus 8. Some of you, I think, are already making a prediction, and that's a good thing. All right, but if we write it out, y equals negative 4x minus 8, we want to set that x value equal to 0. So negative 4 times 0 is going to be 0. And 0 minus 8 is negative 8. So our point is going to be at 0, negative 8. So that's two different equations that we've solved for the y-intercept. All right. Both definitely showed us that that y-intercept is the same value as this last part of the equation. All right. So in each equation, we found that two numbers have significant meaning for us. We're going to take a closer look. This is what we call slope-intercept form. And we're going to get into this in my next video.